Hey, hello. I think we are here. So this is my first YouTube video with this, so I am hoping this goes off without a hitch. I know we've done a live before, like kind of quick on YouTube, but this will be my first one doing the live. So I'm gonna give people a minute to pop on. I'm gonna get my iPad set up so I could also see the comments in the video. So we'll be getting started in just a couple minutes with that. But I wanted to get this all started on time. Let's see if I can pop this up on my video. Sweet. Okay, cool. I am there. I was hoping I could change the orientation on this, but apparently I can't. So, all right. So we are doing, this is our week 1 skill builder for our 2026 session. We're going to be doing the B snap tab, eyelet, and key fob. And the bag tag as well. So we'll be stitching out 3 different designs tonight. Okay, as well, since again, I haven't done this on the YouTube before. So I've got the, so what we'll do this is we'll roll through and I'll go through everything step by step. I've got my iPad set up so I can kind of answer comments in real time as that comes up. I'm not sure if we'll have as many people here as we normally do, since this will be kind of our kickoff of using YouTube, but I'm hoping it's a better platform for us since the comments will stay up. People have questions, unlike Facebook where the comments disappear after the live is over. So I'm answering questions without repeating the questions and it's confusing. So hopefully this will work out better for us. But so we are ready to go. I've got the designs loaded to my machine already. I'm going to be stitching up mine in this yellow diamond dust. I think if you got the kit from So Unique Designs, it's the same vinyl. So that's what I'll be using tonight. This is a cutaway stabilizer that I have hooped. With this design, you can easily use tearaway as well. It's not a super dense or heavy design. In fact, it's a pretty quick stitch out for all 3 of these. So this won't be a super long video. But we'll go through it, we'll stitch it together, and then we'll cut it out and we'll add all the hardware so we can kind of see how snap tabs and those kind of designs all come together. So step 1 of any of these designs is going to be placement stitch on stabilizer for this. So I have a contrasting color up on my machine so you can easily see what I'm stitching. So I'm also gonna color sort this on my machine as well, so I can do it all in one fell swoop. So first up, we're gonna be stitching right on the stabilizer. So we have 10 weeks of designs. So our next session will be applique and shaker designs, which I have the design ready and I'll have that out to you this week. But good news, my basement, we're finally moving forward with getting all these repairs done from when it flooded this fall. So I'm gonna be out of commission to do lives for up to 2 weeks is what they're saying by the time it's all said and done. So I can have the designs to you, but we're gonna have to delay the actual lives for a couple weeks until we get that all taken care of, because I can't do a live without access to my machines to stitch it out. So, all right. Oops, what happened there? All right. We've almost got our placement stitches all done here. I'm trying to figure out, I think I have this angled kind of weird. It looks like blurry almost. Maybe this is a little better. Clear down here, but I'm trying to adjust the, it wants to be blurred there. It's a learning curve here with doing these on the YouTube. Sorry if I just made you super seasick. Okay, I'm trying to figure out why my iPad is being a little crazy here with everything. Let's see, I need to turn. There we go. All right, so my headphones are actually connected to my phone that's recording and not my tablet that I'm listening to my voice. All right, but I think we're good to go. So we've got our placement stitches down. And I want to know why this isn't, there we go. All right, placement stitches are down. So now I know kind of how to place my vinyl, where to place my vinyl. So I'm going to go here. Oops, sorry, just bumped that phone. I'm in the cat hair here on my vinyl there. This is a way bigger piece than I need, but we're going to rock and roll with it. So I'm going to do these designs all in one hoop together. So it'll be a little quicker as we're going. If you have a 5x7 and up, you can get at least two of these designs in your hoop. I'm stitching all three in a 6x10 hoop. And again, if you have a 4x4, you'll just have to do them each one at a time to kind of fit on. But if you have bigger hoops, you can kind of save yourself some time for multiple designs and do them all at once. So our first step is going to be black after our placement stitches. And again, I am doing this on cutaway. Tearaway will work fine because it's not a very dense design. All right, so we're going to go ahead and go down. So we're doing this one. I'm doing the actual bag tag first, which is that hive situation. And although I color sorted it, I see my machine didn't do a very good job of that. So I'll jump around a little bit just so I can. Actually, no, I'll just rock and roll with it and we'll get step by step on that. Just do a lot of thread changes, all good. And then when we get these all stitched out and finished, we'll go over and we'll talk about some hardware options too. Because it's a fun thing about like, especially the eyelet fobs and the bag tags, you have lots of different options for hardware. Bag tags also make great bookmarks too. You want to throw a tassel or some ribbon on, it's always a good option. They're pretty, I think bag tags are my favorite because they are so versatile and you can really do a ton of things with them. Just getting our main outline here first. And I think what I'm going to do is I usually stitch. So just as a heads up, most of my designs, when I stitch at one of the lowest speeds on my machine. And so I think my speed is set to about 400 stitches per minute. I find, especially when you're doing things like satins, which satins are the kind of thicker, um, so satins are these guys, these like thick, wide stitches. I find that they stitch out nicer and a little cleaner when you slow your machine down a little bit. Also, if you're doing things like that have more detail, it tends to help when you slow that down. It's easier on your machine to have it stitched at a slower speed, especially most of these like domestic based machines. I'm not talking about like commercial embroidery machines, but the faster speed you stitch on, there's more friction that's going to be going through. It's creating more heat. You're going to get more thread breaks, more skip stitches. So I like to have mine slowed down. It just works better for me. That's totally your call. A lot of my testers make fun that I stitch on granny speed all the time, but that's what I find I get the best results with. But I think since this is pretty simple, not very detailed, I am going to amp it up just a little bit, just so we're not having to take forever while this is stitching just kind of basic runs. But I'll wait till we finish this stuff here. 'Cause our longest stitches will be the blacks, basically, our longest time running a step. So if you have your machine speed turned up and you're doing different stitching, you'll finish a lot faster than I will. What we're doing here. Oh, I have one more line. I was like, what are we doing? I thought we were done. Yeah, it would be helpful to finish stitching out the whole step of the hive before I start messing with all my speeds and stuff here. All right, so we've got the eyes to go, and then the heart on this one, and then I'll skip the final stitch on the hive. Because the final stitch on these, the very last step on all these snap tabs, bag tags, things like that, are all going to be to place your backing down. And since I'm doing multiple in a hoop, I'm going to do the backing as the very last step I do for all of them. So I will jump ahead off that in a second. You're getting there. It's been a cold, snowy day here in Cincinnati. We've got another, it feels like almost 2 inches today, but I'm probably being dramatic. So I have tried to stay in the house where it's nice and warm because it's gross out there. All right, so we're on to the heart. I am going to put my machine speed up. I've been at 400. I'm going to go up to 700, which I may regret on this heart. We will find out. I'm sorry, I'm sticking my hand right in front of the camera to get this threaded. I was trying not to knock my phone, but all right, so we've got our little heart on our hive here. Let's see if I regret turning my speed up. Because the faster it goes, the more friction you're going to have, the more heat, more thread breaks, more skip stitches. And you just set the most on like details. All right, so our last step for our hive is going to be our outline that adds the backing. But I'm going to jump ahead because I want to stitch out the other designs on here too. So I'm going to skip ahead. And now we are on the eyelet fob down here is where we're starting. So we already stitched our first step, which was our placement. The next step on the eyelet fob is going to be the wings. So I'm going to do white on those. And again, I'm going to try real hard not to bump the camera here, but I'm like 0 for 5 so far. Oh, there you go. Success for the first time. All right. So we're going to do the wings on the eyelet fob. It just seems so fast to me because I'm so used to stitching at much slower speeds. See if I can come. I'm trying to adjust this a little bit. I feel like maybe that's a little bit better. I feel like it's a little bit blurry. Now I'm really going to hit my phone when I go to change it too. right, so now it's going to go ahead and we're moving on to the snap tab. It did sort this properly for me. We're doing the wings for the snap tab now. All right. Okay, so now we are on to the black on the snap, tap, and eyelet. And a good friend of mine is sending messages right now because she is expecting a baby in her family. She's not having a baby, but she's sending messages right now and I can't see what's going on. So now I'm going to be anxious to check the messages when we're done here. All right, so we're back on the eyelet fob. That's what we're starting with, and we'll go to the snap and we're doing the black for the outline and the stripe and the mouth and the eyes. And I didn't hit the camera again, so we're doing good. Onto his little booty, stitching the stinger. Outline from here, and then we'll come back and I'll do the face details. Husband and our daughter at a daddy-daughter dance, so they're out having fun, and then I'm gonna head out with some of the moms after we are finished here. And then I'll be packing up a lot of this stuff down here in the basement this weekend. Fingers crossed. They said Monday, but they would let me know for sure, and I haven't heard 100%. So when they're actually starting, it'll be this week. I'm just waiting to hear the final day of when they're actually going to be invading my house to do all this. So be nice to go out tonight, hang out with some people for a couple hours, and then I'll spend the rest of the weekend packing and staying in where it's nice and warm and cozy. his last eye on the Eyelet Fob. And this is always kind of the boring part, is just waiting for the, because this is the easy part, just stitching things up on the machine. I'm gonna jump ahead and do the black on the snap tab. So we're there on that. And we're actually almost done with our stitch out. So this is the boring part, just watching it stitch, but it is kind of hypnotic. Sometimes I end up not being as productive as I should be because I just stare and watch things stitch out. All right, so let's do rest of the black here. After we switch to the black for here, we have to add his little tongue, and then we're ready to add our backing and do our final outline, the last step of the design. And then we get to cut it all out and add the hardware. So next week well, like I said, I can't do the live with the basement situation, but I have the design ready, so I'll get that out to you. And I'm going to put like an extra goodie or two in for the next couple weeks, just since we're having to kind of wait to do the actual live itself until I have my workspace back after this week. Because I had 2 ideas for shakers that I wanted to do, and I did the one, I did the retro TV, which is super cute and I'm happy with, but I had another idea too. I may just get that done and throw that in there as well. And I forget what our week 3 is. Now I gotta look it up because I'm not entirely sure what our week 3 is. Let's find out. Let's see, what do I have for week 3 happening here? Week 3, oh, card cases and wallets. Okay, cool. All right, yeah, I might do an extra one for those too. Do his last little eye, and we're done with the black. We'll do pink for his little tongue, and then add our backing. All right, so let's see if I can once again get this threaded without knocking my phone. No promises. I'm gonna try. Oh, nope. I already hit it. And the worst part will be is when we have to move over to the table to cut them out and add hardware. I always feel like I'm making everybody seasick when I do that. All right, I'm gonna back it up just a little bit because the tongue on the other guy didn't get stitched yet. So we'll start there so I don't forget about it. The tongue on the Eyelet Fob. And if you're doing, so with this file, you got Snap Tab and Eyelet and Multi, so there's 3 each on those, and those are automatically color sorted for you. But since I just threw these 3 designed individually on my machine, I had to trust my machine to color sort, and it kind of did a crappy job, but here we are. All right, so now we're ready for our very last step. And this is the same for all the designs. Your very last step, that final outline, is going to be to attach your backing to the design. So for backings, you can either use the same vinyl or material you use for the front. Often I like to use felt on the back because it's cheaper than vinyl, but that's up to you. You just want a non-fraying material, just like you did for the front. I'm going to use the same color vinyl, but if you're going to production make these and you're making a lot and you don't want to use quite as much vinyl, felt is a great option too. Just half felt. But we're going to go with this. So I'm going to flip my hoop over. I have it on the back here. Let me back you up just a little bit here. So I have the back of my hoop here. I'm going to take my backing vinyl and I'm going to place it down, making sure that's covering all the areas of the design. I don't want to be kind of careless with it and slap it down, because you'll have like a little piece sticking out. So just make sure, just like we did with our first step, that all the stitches are covered. I'm going to use some tape. Use some masking tape. I have a lot of hate relations with masking tape. Honestly, a lot of times I just slap it on there and turn it over and hope for the best. But if we're going to be official and do it right, I am going to secure it with some tape. I like to make sure that my tape is out of any area of stitching. I find that my machine does not like tape, and it will gum up the needle, cause skip stitches, threads nests, and things like that. So I'm just going to put some masking tape on just to make sure that it's nice and secure. And I'm going to reload the machine with the backing on, and I'm going to change my thread color to, I'm going to go back in a little bit too. I'm going to change my thread color to match my vinyl. If you're not really secure or confident in your cutting ability for vinyl projects and you're afraid your cutting is a little wonky, a good tip is to use the same color thread as your vinyl. It won't be as obvious when you're cutting if you're not as even or as straight. If you're going to use a contrast color, which can look really cool, just be prepared to be confident in your cutting skills with that, because any kind of wonkiness tends to show up a little bit more than same color thread. So I'm going to go back up. I got to go way back up here to my bag tag. All right, so we're going to start there. We'll do our final step on the bag tag, and then we'll do the same for the other 3. Notice too, stitching at higher speeds, when you get skip stitches, I'll notice some more on final outlines too. So again, I'm kind of playing with fire stitching at a higher speed here. But so far, so good. I don't want to jinx myself. All right, so now we're going to jump to the last step for the eyelet fob for our outline. And then we'll move to the table and we'll cut these up and put them together. last step here. And I need to run up and yell at my oldest till the dog outside because I hear the dog fussing at the door. So while that's doing, I'm gonna go yell at my child to take care of the dog. Okay, we're back. I didn't miss anything. Because of course a teenager doesn't hear the dog barking at the door. All right, so now we are ready to go over to the table. So I am gonna have to move the camera over there. So I have it all set up, but if you get seasick, please look away because I am going to move it, and you can ignore the giant mess that my basement is. So look, all that nonsense is going to be bye-bye soon, and I cannot wait. Let me get this in the holder here and get you set up so we can all see. Perfect. Over there. All right, so we have our design here. Front, back. And go ahead and pop this out of our hoop. This tape off here, and I'll save that vinyl too because that'll fit for something later because I cut my pieces a little bit big. One thing when I am cutting, I actually find it easier to cut into detailed areas and curves when I'm cutting one thing at a time and I don't have a ton of excess to cut away. So I'm actually going to do kind of a rough cut first. Oops, this rotary cutter has seen better days. I know, cut away from yourself, don't cut towards yourself, but ignore that I did that. Sometimes I like to live. See, it's this rotary cutter needs a new blade, which I have over there, but I have not put in yet. And we all know that dull blades are a lot more dangerous than sharp blades, but it is what it is for now. Let's get this all kind of cut down a little bit. And then I will go in. I've got some nice sharp shears here. It's important these are sharp. It's going to be a lot easier to cut things through and around when you're dealing with sharp shears and not something that's already dull. So, all right. So from here, again, I'm going to do a rough cut just because I find it really hard to get into small areas when you've got a ton of excess to deal with and try and come around. So that is just me. So we'll start this with the snap tab. Let me get this garbage out of the way. All right, so we're here with the snap tab. Cut. When you're cutting your vinyl, I like to go about a 1/4 inch or so away from the line of stitching, especially if you're not confident in your vinyl cutting skills. Staying a little farther away is also going to hide kind of any wonkiness you have when you cut. Another thing is too, when you go in, turn your vinyl and not your scissors. So I am right-handed, so I'm kind of right hand. I'm using my left hand to turn the vinyl. I'm not actually turning my scissors. I'm just cutting in the same straight line, and then I just turn the vinyl. And also a little wonkiness, people aren't going to notice, especially if you're staying a little farther away. It's when you start getting really close, and the problem becomes you'll see one area of wonkiness, and then you go to straighten it up and you cut more away, and then you cut more away. And it's kind of like that time in junior high where you thought you were going to cut your own bangs and they were uneven, so you went to cut them even, and then you kept taking more and more and more off, and then at the end it was just a nightmare. It's kind of how I look at cutting and trimming vinyl. So again, a 1/4 inch or so away. I know, and this isn't perfect. I am actually not the best person at cutting vinyl, so most people are not going to notice a slight bit of crookedness, especially if you've got a matching thread. it's gonna blend in a little bit better. So we got our little snap tab here. And then I'm gonna do the same thing on our bag tag and our eyelet fob. So again, 1/4 inch away, rotate the vinyl, not the scissors. Use the hand holding the vinyl to turn it around the scissors. And I hear my dog having zoomies upstairs now that he's back inside. Oops, I'm not in the camera, sorry about that. I was so focused on cutting that I wasn't actually where anyone could see anything. And some people have scissor preferences, they like shorter shears to do this. For me, I haven't found a difference. As long as my scissors are sharp, I get the same results, but that's just me. All right, there's 2. And then we have our little bag tag to cut out. The same thing, 1/4 inch or so away. Using my non-dominant hand to turn that vinyl. My scissors aren't being turned, just the vinyl. A little close there, but again, it's going to kind of hide itself because I'm not trimming super close all around, and I have the same thread color for the vinyl, so it kind of camouflages anything that's a little bit wonky. But if we're going to be super picky, you can look here and see where I got, it's a little uneven, but it's better to kind of leave it a little uneven than to go in and make it way worse. So again, from a distance, you really can't tell that it's not perfectly even. So that's my little trick to help kind of increase your confidence there when you're cutting out things like snap tabs and things from vinyl. All right, so we have our 3 things. Now we got to add hardware. So snap tabs are pretty easy. I'm actually going to grab some small scissors, and I got a couple of jumps I want to trim up before. These are side hoppers, these little guys, and I love these for tiny little jumps, which this guy I think is free, but I'll get the back where I had the tie off for the backing. Clean that up there. Get this all cleaned up there. I've got a little jump here between his mouth and his eye. Another trick too, if you have an area that's super tight that you need to cut jumps out of, is to grab a seam ripper, and you can always stick a seam ripper just to kind of get in between. If it's like a really tight jump and you can't get scissors in there, get your seam ripper just to kind of break that thread so that you can get back in with scissors. So where did that thread go? It's hiding on me. All right, so he is cleaned up there. Let me check his backside. Yeah, I got some jumps back there where it tied off I want to clean up. And then we've got my jumps a little long there where it tied off. I'm going to trim that down. Got a little jump here from the outline to the hole. I'll get that cleaned up, and then I'll clean up where my machine cut it here, where, oops, looking at little white threads back in the back. It's not the easiest thing. All right, so we have 3 things here. All right, so snap tabs, you got a couple options here. You can either use cam snaps, or you can use a rivet. A rivet's gonna be permanent, which means that it's not gonna open and close once you actually add hardware to it. That's it, that's done. But rivets are a great option, especially for things that are gonna be on your keys that need heavy duty with, like say your keys go through the ringer, or for kids' backpacks and things, because it's just gonna last a lot longer. I use snap tabs, that's just me. I just like the color, I always like color. But if you're using snap tabs, a couple things with that is I like to get the long prong cam snaps, because When you have a lot of thicker vinyls especially, it's harder for these little bits of the cam snaps to grab a hold of and kind of smash together and hold permanently. So what you can do if you're having issues and your snaps do not stay together is normally when you attach a snap, you're going to pierce a hole with like an awl or a stiletto, which is what I normally do. The other option is if you've got a punch, any kind of hole punch, this is a crocodile, you can use this to punch a hole instead of just piercing a hole through, and that'll give you an actual like bigger hole, which will clear the way for those snaps to kind of come and join together where they're meant to. Because these little parts here, this little spiky part, will end up kind of mashing and becoming in this. But if it doesn't get a good enough connection, let's say your materials are really, really thick, see how much you've got there sticking out? But if your materials are really thick, sometimes that can't really bite in there as well. But creating a hole, as opposed to just like piercing a small little hole, will help those so they can really connect together. I'm using long prongs and a table press, so I typically don't have that problem. I did when I was using like a hand press to attach the snaps, but that's just a little tip there. If you have an issue with that, try punching a hole instead of piercing it. Use up what you have, and the next time you purchase, go for the long prongs. All right, so I'm just gonna pierce a hole where I want my bottom snap to go. And then I'm gonna come up to the top, just get it centered, kind of where you want it. Pierce a hole there. And you're gonna want your flat part here on the front, and then either your male or your female on the bottom. I like to use the male on the bottom. There's no rhyme or reason to this. In my head, it just is more secure, but I think that's very non-scientific. And I'm gonna grab my press here. You can see, put it in here. And I'm gonna mash that down. I got one down. So, same thing for the next one. I'm just gonna put it up there. The flat part's gonna go on the front of your snap, on your snap tab. On the back, now I'm gonna put the female side on. And also when you're putting these on, make sure that you kind of push your vinyl down so that you've actually had that whole piece there. I don't know if you can really see, your whole piece there is through. So it's not like kind of, you don't want it to be where it's like just a little bit through or sticking through like this. You wanna make sure you really get it through and then push down kind of the excess to clear that post a little bit too. And that will help them attach well. All right, so our snap is done. We got snap here, and I'll talk about hardware in a second, but we're gonna go ahead and add our eyelets to our eyelet fob and our bag tag. I'm gonna use a crocodile to punch a hole and to attach the eyelets. Oops, this table is so heavy, this press. All right, so crocodile is a cool little tool because it's got a hole punch and then a way to attach the eyelets to it. A friend of mine sent this to me. If you guys know Amy of Off With Her Fred, she grew tired of watching me punch a hole with the tool that comes with this, which you absolutely can use. This is just a hole punch. You just don't want to make sure you don't use it on your cutting mat or something, or put like a block of wood underneath it before you punch that hole, because this will go through your cutting mat. But she sent me this, and it's pretty quick, and I love it. So I'm just going to punch a hole. I'm using the little circle here as a guide to put in the hole punch side here, and I'm just going to punch that out, and my hole is done. And then I'm going to clear out right here so I can see for the next one. Do the same thing for the bag tag. I'm going to punch my hole. My hole is done. Sometimes if you're a little off when you cut, you'll end up with some loose threads. That's fine. It's really, those threads are just to give you a visual. They're not doing anything structurally to it, so you can just cut those away if you have. Like I cut mine a little off there. Just clean those up just so they're not peeking through your eyelet. All right, so from here, I'm gonna grab my eyelets, and these are 3/16 eyelets. You can use 3/16 inch, or if you're finding just the metric equivalent, that's gonna be 5 millimeters. So gonna have my front piece and my back piece. I'm gonna go ahead and grab 2 of these out. 1, 2, grab another yellow one out. I like to really kind of match the eyelets to my vinyl as well most times, but that's really just a preference thing. It's totally up to you. But you're gonna put your eyelet through here on the front. Same thing, kind of push it down a little bit so that the post is through. These eyelets that I'm using here are a little bit on the more shallow side, which I might regret here in a minute. I have some over there. The post is a little more forgiving. This one may not be as forgiving. This is an old set. All right, I'm gonna put my back here over the post, and then I'm gonna put my crocodile and put them together. Of course, I keep always end up locking this thing. Oops, nope, my post is not long enough on these. I'm gonna grab my other set. This other set I have, the post is a little bit longer. And like I said, if I use felt in the back, I'm fine, but sometimes with the vinyl, of course, I don't have a good color. I've got so many random eyelets kind of hanging around. I'm sure I have a yellow here somewhere. This is my eyelet situation. I got overconfident thinking that my old skinny set of eyelets was gonna work, but that's a no. These are actually from Cam Snaps, which makes the press and the snap tabs. The other one's just a cheaper set that I got on Amazon. But sometimes if you're dealing with thicker vinyls, you need eyelets with a little bit longer of a post, like these guys here. So we'll do that again. So now I've got more of my post here open on the back side. If you can see the difference here, I got a lot more sticking out so that it actually can bite into it. There we go. One. Do the same thing on this side. And I actually do have a press for or a die for my press here to attach eyelets, but this particular press from Cam Snaps will only work with their eyelets. And also, I just don't like changing the dies on them that much. They're not even hard, but it just gets annoying. So pretty much my Cam Snap dies just live on that one, and I use the crocodile for attaching eyelets. So here's the back of the eyelet, here's the front of the eyelet, and then we have our snap tab. I'm gonna move this out of the way. All right, so hardware options. We got a few different options here. You could always just use a regular old key ring on a snap tab. That's no big deal. If that's what you want, you can use a swivel hook. You can use one of these guys, like a lobster clasp with a gate ring attached. A gate ring is a ring that has a hinge that opens. But I just like that these come in a bunch of different colors, so I use it a lot. So this is on there. So our snap tab there. You can also use a beaded chain, which just connects. I like to use it a lot on my Eyelet Fobs. They just attach in here. Of course, I pick a black one that I can barely see. All right, so I guess I could have turned the light on in this light that I'm actually using as a stand. That would have been helpful. So I've been out of practice. All right, so for the bag tag bookmark, again, you could use a tassel if you want to. If you prefer, you could absolutely just, if you wanted to use it as a bookmark, you could just use a tassel and thread that through for a bookmark. You can use one of these guys again. You can use a wire luggage ring. These are, I'm gonna say 6-inch colored wire rings. Actually, they're called luggage rings or just wire rings on Amazon. Let me measure this real quick. Yep, 6 inches. They come in a bunch of different colors, so you could use a contrasting color, same color. I managed to find one I didn't have packed up, but it's not quite the same yellow. So you could either, this is great too, because these guys you can actually add silicone beads to, or wooden beads that have a wider hole. But you can either attach it like this, or they're just going through and you connect it. Or sometimes people don't like when they have the bag tags like this because they don't necessarily lay flat. Which, if that's an issue for you, what you can do is you can add a jump ring You can just grab a jump ring and you can put the jump ring through here, get some pliers, open it up, put your jump ring through, and then connect your wire ring onto the jump ring, and then it will hang nice and flat for you. That's an option as well. So you got lots of options as to what to do with these and what to add on to these as well. We're just gonna go with the wire ring for now. I'm not gonna, my beads are all packed up. If you got the kit from Michelle, it did come with the beads or wire ring, so you're all set with that. But that's it. So we have our bag tag. See how it doesn't want to lay flat with just the wire ring, so that's why some people prefer to add the jump to it, the jump ring to it, so lay flat. And we have our snap tab, and we have our eyelet fob. So that's it. So really, honestly, the steps of assembly are going to be the same for any snap tab, eyelet fob, and bag tag. The only difference is going to be the number of steps in the designs, or if it has an applique or a shaker, you got a few extra steps, which we'll go over our next recording as well, so we can get through all that. But the assembly is always going to be the same thing. So you've got your placement section, your stabilizer, all your design portion, and then adding the backing, and then your hardware, and that's it. So hopefully this was helpful, and hopefully I will get things rocking and rolling and have a new space the next time we do this. So we're all ready to go, and if everyone has a fabulous week. If you're watching the Super Bowl, enjoy that. I'll be reading and having snacks, because that's what I do. And I will see you guys all in the group this week. So have a great weekend, stay warm, and enjoy the game. All right, bye everyone.